Have you ever wondered why certain people seem to carry a specific energy, an aura, that you can feel without them even saying a word? Why some are drawn to chaos, others to order, some to power, others to solitude? According to Jung, our personality isn't just shaped by experiences. It's also influenced by symbolic patterns encoded in time itself. And what if one of those codes was hidden in the last digit of your birth year? Yes, just a single number, 0 to 9, might reflect a deep psychological imprint that silently guides how you think, feel, and connect with the world. Jung believed numbers hold archetypal meaning, and each digit resonates with specific drives, fears, and inner roles. Once you discover your number, it's like unlocking a forgotten blueprint of your soul. This video isn't about fortune-telling. It's about psychological truth, and it starts with the last digit of your birth year, 0. The hidden meaning of 0 is often misunderstood. It appears empty, hollow, like nothing at all. But in Jungian psychology, nothing is ever just nothing. 0, in its silence, holds everything. It is the beginning before the beginning. It's the place where the self hasn't yet been shaped by the world. And for those born in a year ending in 0, this symbol becomes an invisible blueprint of their personality. People with 0 at the end of their birth year often feel like they're searching for something, but they can't always name it. That's because 0 doesn't give answers. It asks questions. It opens doors, but doesn't tell you what's on the other side. You were born into a path of potential, not certainty. Your personality might carry a deep sense of mystery, not just to others, but to yourself. Sometimes you feel like a blank canvas, yet other times you feel like you're made of layers no one has ever touched. That's the paradox of 0. You can be anything, and that freedom both inspires and overwhelms. Jung spoke of the self as the unification of all opposites, masculine and feminine, light and shadow, conscious and unconscious. 0, more than any other number, contains all of these without clinging to any. You may have noticed how often your life seems to move in cycles. You start things, and then restart. You evolve, and then return to what you thought you had left behind. But this is not failure. This is your pattern. Unlike others who move in straight lines, you move in spirals. You revisit lessons not because you didn't learn them, but because each time you return, you understand them at a deeper level. People might not understand this about you. They might see you as inconsistent, unfocused, or always changing. But the truth is, you're shedding layers, preparing for the next version of yourself. 0 people are also highly intuitive. You feel things before they make sense. You often know when something is about to begin or end, even if no one else sees it coming. There is a quiet wisdom in you, something timeless, but it only works when you trust it. The danger for those with 0 is feeling invisible. Because you don't naturally cling to strong external identities, the world may try to define you. They'll label you, push you, try to tell you who you are, and you, not wanting to disturb the peace, might let them. But deep down, you know, none of it fits. Your power comes from learning to hold your ground without having to be loud. You don't need to prove yourself through noise. Your silence is already full. You don't need to chase approval because you carry the seed of everything inside you. 0 is not a void. It is source. You are not a copy of anyone. You are the space where everything begins. The drive to become. If your birth year ends in 1, you carry the energy of beginnings. You are the spark before the fire, the thought before the action. In Jungian terms, you are driven by the archetype of individuation, the psychological process of becoming who you truly are, beyond the roles and masks society gives you. People, with 1 as their last digit, often feel a deep urge to stand out, not for attention, but for authenticity. You want to be seen for who you really are, and that desire can sometimes make you restless, because so much of the world asks us to conform, to fit in, to be like everyone else. But inside you is a quiet resistance to that. You were not made to follow. You were made to lead yourself. This doesn't mean you always know what you're doing. In fact, your journey is often full of doubt, but the doubt isn't weakness. It's proof that you're thinking, growing, and refusing to settle for something that doesn't feel true. Carl Jung said that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And for people born under this number, that mission feels almost sacred. You may go through many phases of life, different styles, beliefs, circles, until one day something clicks, and you begin to move not from expectation, but from inner knowing. You have a strong sense of personal responsibility. Even when no one is watching, you feel the weight of your choices. That's because you are wired to build a strong identity, one that you can live with when you're alone. This strength makes you reliable, focused, and capable of achieving great things, but it can also make you feel lonely. The number one often walks alone, not because you want to be isolated, but because the path you choose is rarely crowded. You may find it hard to explain your thinking to others. People might not always understand why you make the choices you do, but over time, your results speak louder than your words. There's also a risk with this number, becoming rigid. Because you value independence, you might reject help or assume that you always have to figure everything out on your own. But individuation doesn't mean isolation. It means knowing where you end and others begin. It means learning to grow without losing connection. You might also struggle with perfectionism, setting high standards, not just for yourself, but for others. This is your way of staying true to your path. But it's important to remember, perfection is not the goal. Wholeness is. The gift of being born under one is clarity. You know what you stand for, and even when you don't have the words, your presence shows it. You inspire others not by what you say, but by how real you are. You are not here to fit in. You are here to become. The emotional mirror. 2 is the number of connection. If your birth year ends in 2, your personality is shaped by the archetype of the mirror, someone who reflects and absorbs the emotional world around them. You don't just walk into a room, you feel the room. You sense tension before it's spoken. You notice sadness in someone's smile. And often, you feel things even before others realize they're feeling them. This gift can make you incredibly empathetic, but it also makes you vulnerable. Because when you absorb too much of others, you sometimes forget what's yours and what isn't. You carry invisible weight, emotional confusion, inner storms, and it all happens quietly. Carl Jung believed that every person has both a conscious self and a shadow, the parts of us we hide, repress, or don't fully understand. People born under the number 2 often have strong access to the shadow of others. You see the unspoken, you feel the unhealed. You are naturally tuned to what's behind the mask, but there's a cost. You might become the caretaker, the listener, the one everyone turns to when they need comfort. And in doing that, you risk forgetting to comfort yourself. You may feel unseen, even as you make others feel understood. Your challenge is not to stop feeling, it's to learn how to protect what's yours. Because your power is not in fixing others, it's in holding space for truth without losing your own center. You likely crave deep relationships, not surface-level friendships or small talk. You want emotional truth, rawness, vulnerability. You want connection that feels real. This makes you magnetic to others. But it also means you attract people who are wounded because your soul feels like a safe place. Jung wrote about the anima and animus, feminine and masculine energies that live inside us all. People with 2 as their last digit often have a strong balance of both. You might be gentle but unbreakable, sensitive but wise. You may cry easily, but your tears don't mean weakness. They mean depth. There is also a quiet strength in you, the kind that doesn't need attention. You are often underestimated until crisis hits, and then people realize you are the one who stays calm, the one who listens without judgment, the one who can sit in pain without rushing to escape it. Still, don't let your softness become a prison. You are not here just to support others. You are here to become whole. That means choosing people who pour back into you, saying no when something drains you, and trusting that your sensitivity is not a flaw, it's your compass. Your emotional world is not a burden, it's a gift. And when you learn to hold it without losing yourself, you become not just a mirror to others, but a mirror that reflects back their truth. By the way, if you're curious to go even deeper and integrate your shadows and light, check out the SIM Method ebook. It's a concise guide that can help you unlock your inner power in just 5 minutes a day. The link is in the first pinned comment below. The Silent Warrior. 3 is often seen as a playful number. It appears in fairy tales and myths, the rule of 3 wishes, 3 trials, 3 paths. But in Jungian symbolism, 3 also represents the tension between opposites and the birth of something new. If your birth year ends in 3, you carry the archetype of the silent warrior, someone whose strength isn't loud, but relentless. You are not afraid of pressure. In fact, some part of you is energized by it. You don't run from pain. You study it. You learn its patterns, and then you rise with more clarity. This makes you emotionally tough, but often misunderstood, because people don't always see the battles you fight inside. You carry a deep desire to prove yourself, not to others, but to your own soul. You want to feel worthy, capable, unshakable. And so, you push yourself. You take on challenges most would avoid. But here's the truth, your greatest victories often happen in silence. Carl Jung believed that what we do not bring to consciousness appears in our lives as fate. And those born under 3 often experience repeated patterns, relationships, failures, inner conflicts, until they finally face themselves. You might attract betrayal, resistance, or unfairness, not because you deserve it, but because your soul is demanding strength. Every test you go through is sharpening your edge. There is a warrior in you, but you rarely boast. You endure, you learn, you grow stronger in the dark. People might think you're lucky when they see your wins, but they don't see the nights you broke inside just to hold yourself together by morning. You may have struggled with trusting others, and sometimes even trusting yourself. Because pain has made you cautious, you scan for danger, you read between the lines. But this awareness isn't paranoia, it's a form of survival, and it has kept you safe more times than you can count. There's also a fire in you, a quiet intensity. When you believe in something, you don't quit, and when you love with every cell. But when betrayed, you rarely give second chances. That's not cruelty, it's protection. You know what it took to rebuild your peace, and you won't risk losing it again. Your path is not easy, but it is real. And the more you lean into your strength, the more others are drawn to your presence. You inspire even when you don't. Try. Your energy says, I've been through it and I'm still here. The danger for people with 3 is isolation. You get so used to carrying your own weight that you forget others can help. Let them. You don't have to fight every battle alone. Sometimes strength is in letting someone walk beside you. You were not made to fit in. You were made to endure, evolve, and empower. The rooted soul. 4 is the number of structure, of foundation, of stability. If your birth year ends in 4, your personality is shaped by the deep psychological need for order and purpose. In the Jungian view, people connected to this archetype are often the ones who carry the weight of the world quietly, building their lives piece by piece, while others chase distractions. You crave meaning, but not in a loud or dramatic way. You want to know that what you're doing matters, that your time isn't wasted, that your life has direction. And when things feel out of place, when plans change, when chaos takes over, You feel it deeply. Not because you're controlling, but because you value security. Carl Jung believed that the human psyche seeks wholeness. For someone with 4 as their final digit, this search is grounded in real-world experience. You don't live in fantasy, you live in truth. You build routines, you make plans, and you commit. And yet, despite this appearance of control, there is often a hidden anxiety within you. The fear that if one piece falls, everything might collapse. You are the quiet protector, the silent builder. People rely on you, often without realizing how much. You're the one who remembers the small things, the one who shows up even when no one says thank you. Your strength isn't in words, it's in constancy. But this gift can become a trap, because when your sense of worth is tied to stability, any disruption feels like failure. You might become too hard on yourself, thinking that if things fall apart, it must be your fault. But growth is not always clean, and your journey is not measured by perfection, it's measured by how many times you chose to rebuild. You likely have a strong connection to family, tradition, or responsibility. You feel things deeply, but often keep your emotions private. Not because you don't care, but because showing vulnerability feels like weakness. Jung would say this is the shadow of the stable personality, the fear of being seen without your armor. You may also struggle with change. Transitions can be difficult. You like to know what's coming, you like to prepare. And when life forces you to adapt without warning, it can leave you feeling unmoored. But here's the truth, your soul isn't fragile. It's anchored. Even when the surface shakes, your roots go deep, and in that depth, you carry something sacred, integrity. You don't just say what you believe, you live it. You're not interested in performance, you're interested in what's real. And this makes your presence rare in a world that often rewards noise over substance. Still, you must remember, being grounded doesn't mean staying still. Growth requires movement, evolution, and sometimes even letting go. You don't have to carry everyone, you don't have to fix everything. You are allowed to be supported too. You are the pillar others lean on, the calm in the storm, the one who holds things together even when you're breaking inside, and that makes you more than stable. It makes you sacred. The unseen rebel. 5 is the number of freedom, of movement, of resistance. If your birth year ends in 5, your personality carries a restless energy, always searching for something more. In Jungian terms, this aligns with the archetype of the rebel, but not in the loud, chaotic way people expect. You are a quiet revolutionary, a rule breaker in disguise. You don't like to be boxed in. You question everything. You observe the world and instinctively feel where things don't make sense, where systems fail, where truth is being bent. And while others accept, you ask, why? This ability makes you powerful, but it also makes you lonely, because not everyone likes questions. Some people prefer comfort, routine, obedience, but you were born to challenge. Even as a child, you may have felt like your mind worked differently. You saw things others ignored. You wanted more freedom, more truth, more meaning. Carl Jung taught that the journey to individuation requires confronting the shadow. For you, the shadow isn't fear, it's boredom. The moment something feels repetitive, meaningless, or fake, you lose your fire. You need movement, not just physically, but intellectually and emotionally. You may change jobs often, or relationships, or even cities. People might call you inconsistent, but they don't understand what's driving you. It's not confusion, it's intuition. You know when something no longer serves your soul, and even when it hurts, you leave. Because staying in a dead space feels worse than pain. But the shadow of 5 is the temptation to escape rather than grow. You may run from problems that require stillness, avoid intimacy when it asks you to stay. Rebel not because you're right, but because you're scared to be seen. Your gift is in adaptation. You can walk into any room, any situation, and find a way to blend, to move, to reshape. But don't lose your center. Your power is not in changing for the world. It's in changing the world through your truth. You also have a strong, creative pulse. You think in images, in symbols. You might dream vividly, feel inspired by music, colors, or places. This is part of your soul's language. Jung would say it's the voice of the unconscious, trying to lead you toward meaning. Follow. People born under 5 often experience sudden shifts in life, breakthroughs that come from breakdowns, enlightenment after chaos, and each time you rise with a clearer vision of who you are. You are not afraid to rebuild, because you never believed in permanence to begin with. But don't let freedom become isolation. You need people who can hold space for your fire without trying to put it out, people who understand that your restlessness isn't immaturity, it's wisdom in motion. You were not made to sit still. You were made to break patterns, ignite change, and set your own path on fire. The quiet healer. 6 is the number of care, repair, and inner restoration. If your birth year ends in 6, your personality carries the quiet but powerful energy of the healer. But unlike the stereotype, your healing doesn't come through big gestures or grand advice. It comes through presence, through listening, through simply being there when others need something steady. You likely didn't choose to be a healer. Life shaped you into one, maybe through witnessing pain, being hurt, or learning to survive in emotional chaos. You learned to feel deeply, not because it was safe, but because it was necessary. Jung believed the wound is where the light enters, and in your life, that wound became your wisdom. You're the kind of person who remembers birthdays, who notices when someone's energy changes, who shows up even when no one asks. You offer comfort in subtle ways, making someone feel seen without saying much at all. That's your superpower. You don't fix, you soothe, you don't rush. You remain. But here's the hidden truth. Healers often forget to heal themselves. Because you're so tuned into others, you might silence your own pain. You might take pride in being the strong one, always holding space for others. But strength doesn't mean self-neglect, and being the healer doesn't mean you must always be whole. You may struggle with guilt, feeling like you're not doing enough, or that you should always be giving. But Carl Jung warned that too much focus on the outer self leads to the loss of the inner self. If you only give and never receive, your own soul becomes empty. You may also fear conflict. Harmony matters deeply to you. You want peace. And when tension arises, you often try to smooth things over, even at the cost of your truth. But healing doesn't mean avoiding pain. It means transforming it. Your relationships are intense, not because of drama, but because of depth. You crave connection that feels like a sanctuary. You're not drawn to excitement. You're drawn to intimacy, realness, warmth. And when someone breaks your trust, it feels devastating because you give so much. There's a quiet nobility in how you live. You may not seek attention, but people remember how you made them feel. You are the safe place, the emotional anchor, the one who listens without judgment and stays when others leave. But don't forget, you are allowed to receive what you give. You are allowed to ask for help, to say no, to rest, because your healing power is strongest when it includes you. You don't need to shout to be heard. You don't need to shine to matter. You are not here to save everyone. You are here to be whole, and that's what makes your presence healing. The soul on fire. 7 is the number of vision, awakening, and inner fire. If your birth year ends in 7, your personality carries the intense, sometimes overwhelming energy of the seeker, someone who cannot settle for surface-level answers. You want truth, not comfort, not illusion, real, raw, transformational. Truth. Carl Jung described individuation as a journey inward, facing the unconscious, embracing the shadow and becoming whole. And for you, that journey is not optional, it's a calling. You may have always felt a little different, like your mind lived elsewhere, asking questions others didn't even think to consider. Why are we here? What does all this mean? Who am I really? These are not passing curiosities for you. They are fires that burn under your skin. And when ignored, they can make you restless, anxious, or even depressed. But when honored, they transform you into a beacon, someone who helps. Others see what they never noticed before. You don't follow the crowd. You observe it. From a distance, you might feel disconnected from normal life, as if something deeper is always pulling at you. That's because your soul wasn't made for small talk or shallow living. You were born to awaken. But this fire inside you, it can be both a gift and a burden. You may have trouble sleeping, not just from stress, but because your thoughts won't stop. You may jump between passions, ideas, or beliefs, trying to find what feels right. You may even feel isolated, as if no one really understands what's happening inside you. That's the shadow of the seeker, the fear of being too much for others, too intense, too deep, too serious. But here's the truth. Your depth is your beauty. Your mind is a universe. And while not everyone will understand you, the right people will be inspired by you. You are drawn to the mysterious, the spiritual, the symbolic, the unseen. Jung would say, your unconscious is highly active. That dreams, synchronicities, and intuition are your compass. You might feel things before they happen, know things without explanation, and the more you trust this, the more aligned you become. But beware of burnout. Because your passion is so intense, you may push yourself too hard. Emotionally, mentally, even spiritually, you want to do it all, feel it all, know it all. But growth also requires grounding. Your challenge is to balance the fire with earth, to root your visions in reality, to bring your ideas into action. Because you're not just here to seek truth, you're here to embody it. Your journey may be lonely at times, but it's also profound. You are the inner light, the spark that wakes others up, the one who asks the questions no one else dares to ask. You are not here to fit into the world, you are here to ignite it from within. The builder of legacy. 8 is the number of power, mastery, and structure through achievement. If your birth year ends in 8, your personality is shaped by the archetype of the builder, not just of things, but of meaningful legacy. You aren't here just to exist. You're here to create something that lasts. Carl Jung believed that power, when unconscious, becomes destructive, but when integrated, it becomes transformative. And that's your journey, to claim your power, not through domination or ego, but through clarity of purpose. You are wired for impact, and even if you don't say it aloud, you want your life to matter beyond the day-to-day. From a young age, you may have felt a need to prove yourself, to rise, to be strong, to stand on solid ground. You respect discipline, you value structure, and you believe in earning your place in the world. You're not looking for shortcuts. You want to build from the foundation up. But with this drive comes a hidden tension, the fear of failure, the quiet voice that says, if I stop, I'll lose everything. You carry a pressure that others don't see because you make it look easy. But behind your calm, there's often a deep inner responsibility, a feeling that you must carry the weight, provide the answer, build the solution. This can lead to success, but also to exhaustion. Jung taught that the psyche must integrate both the personal and collective unconscious. For people with 8, as their final digit, there's often a conflict between individual ambition and collective duty. You want to lead, but you also want to protect. You want to grow, but not at the cost of others. And that balance is not easy. You may struggle with control, wanting things to be just right, fearing chaos, over-planning. But remember, control isn't the same as clarity. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is let go of what isn't aligned. You are a natural strategist. You think ahead, you see patterns, you understand how systems work and how they break. This makes you a builder not just of projects, but of trust, safety, and opportunity. People may look to you for guidance even if you didn't ask to lead. But don't fall into the trap of defining yourself only by results. You are not your achievements. You are not your bank account. You are not the titles or the goals. You are the presence behind it all. The part that doesn't disappear when the success fades. There's a quiet dignity in how you show up. You take things seriously. You speak less, observe more. You don't need attention. You need respect. And when you feel unseen, it hurts. Not because of pride, but because of how much you give without asking. The key for you is balance between work and rest, between action and reflection, between building for others and living for yourself. You are the legacy maker, the one who sees the long game, the one who plants trees knowing they may never sit in the shade. You don't just build for now, you build for what will remain after you're gone. The soul that completes the cycle. 9 is the number of completion, wisdom, and soul integration. If your birth year ends in 9, your personality carries the quiet depth of someone who has walked through many emotional landscapes and returned with stories not everyone can understand. Carl Jung believed that the goal of life is to move toward wholeness, not perfection, but integration of all parts of the self, light and shadow, strength and wound, logic and mystery. You more than anyone are on that path. People born under 9 often feel older than their years. Even as a child, you may have felt like you didn't quite belong to the world around you. You saw things others didn't, felt more than you could explain. And instead of asking, "How do I fit in?" your soul quietly asked, "Why am I here?" You are not here for speed. You are here for depth. You may not be the loudest in the room, but your presence speaks volumes. You have lived many endings, lost things, mourned dreams, walked away from paths others thought were perfect, not because you're reckless, but because your inner compass doesn't allow you to fake it. You carry grief like a thread in your soul. Not sadness, but sensitivity to what is real, what is broken, and what is true. You are the witness, the one who sees the patterns playing out long before others do. The one who notices the silence in someone's voice and knows what it means. This depth can be isolating. You may feel misunderstood, even when surrounded by people. You may long for connection, but fear that no one could fully meet you where you are. And yet you keep loving, you keep giving, because your soul knows that healing doesn't come through perfection, it comes through presence. Jung said that people must face the darkness within themselves to awaken their full humanity. You have faced that darkness, maybe in small ways, maybe in moments no one ever saw. But every time you chose to grow instead of numb, to speak instead of stay silent, to forgive instead of harden, you completed a cycle. 9 is the final number before everything begins again. You are the threshold, the bridge between what was and what will be, and your challenge is learning to live with peace inside that transition. You may carry gifts you don't always understand, vivid dreams, deep intuition, flashes of insight. These are not accidents. They are the voice of your unconscious guiding you toward wisdom. Listen, you may not chase fame, but your words leave echoes. You may not seek recognition, but your energy transforms rooms. You are the quiet alchemist turning pain into purpose, endings into beginnings. Don't be afraid of being different. You were never meant to follow the script. You are the one who ends the cycle, not by force, but by understanding. You are not here to escape the world. You are here to elevate it. By now, you've walked through 10 different paths, 10 final Digits, 10 silent codes woven into your birth year. And maybe, for the first time, a part of you feels seen in a way that goes beyond personality tests or shallow labels. Because this wasn't about prediction, it was about recognition, about touching the deeper patterns that shape who you are. Carl Jung believed that life is not a straight line, it's a spiral. We return to the same places but with new awareness, and your last digit, the number that silently ends the year you were born, might just be one of those places you were meant to return to, not to get stuck there, but to remember something about yourself. These numbers were never about fate. They are symbols, and symbols, as Jung taught, are bridges between the conscious and unconscious mind. They speak the language your soul understands, even when your brain cannot yet explain it. So what do you do with this now? Maybe you've seen yourself in one of these paths. Maybe you've felt echoes from more than one. That's okay. We are never just one archetype. We are a living blend of many forces, shaped not only by the time we were born, but by the choices we make, the pain we survive, the love we offer, and the courage we reclaim. But if there is one truth that threads through every digit, it is this: you were not born by accident. Your number is not random. Your soul came here carrying a blueprint, and your job is to unfold it. Some of you may carry the energy of the seeker, always looking for answers. Others may carry the burden of the builder, always trying to hold things together. Some are rebels, others healers. But all of you are here to integrate, to pull together the light and the shadow, the questions and the truths, the beginning and the end. This is the work of becoming whole. Not perfect, whole, and wholeness begins when you stop hiding the parts of you that feel different, too much, too quiet, or too intense. Because those parts, they are your gift. Jung didn't just study the mind. He studied the soul's journey. He believed that each person has within them something unique, something that, if not lived out, creates restlessness, anxiety, and even illness. Your number may not be your destiny, but it might be the doorway you were meant to walk through. So take a breath, look at your digit, and ask yourself, what if this is the beginning of understanding something you've always felt, but never had? Words for what if all the times you doubted yourself, compared yourself, or felt out of place were actually moments when your inner self was trying to remind you of your deeper nature? What if your number has been speaking to you all along? Maybe it whispered through your habits. Maybe it echoed in your dreams. Maybe it pulsed in your silence. The world will always try to generalize you, to fit you into safe categories. But your soul doesn't care about categories. It cares about truth. So let this not just be information you heard. Let this be remembrance. Let it awaken something ancient in you, something wild, something gentle, something that no one ever taught you but you've always carried. This video wasn't about superstition. It was about pattern, about meaning, about giving you a lens to see yourself more clearly, not to limit you, but to free you. Because once you know your pattern, you can finally stop fighting yourself and start working with your design. The last digit of your birth year is a small detail, but maybe, just maybe, it holds a giant truth. You are not random. You are not broken. You are a living symbol. And the world is waiting for the version of you that remembers that. So step forward, not as a number, but as the story the number came to unlock.